Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to Second Breakfast with me and whoever decides to show up. Hopefully, my pals will not wait till halfway through, but it is a work day, and we knew this would be part of the equation. I hope you guys are doing good. I'm having a busy week, all kinds of different things going on. Uh, Still working on the same minis. I got some stuff coming in. Hopefully, I'll get some of this stuff knocked off my table and into some storage bins or something. It never ends, right? After having cleaned up the garage and starting to work on the studio, I'm already filling it back up with junk, minis, statues, books, and games, and all that stuff. But there's still some room to grow into it. I picked up. Who do we have here? James. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I mean, you don't join my channel anymore, so I got to run you down.
James, how many shows of yours have I been on?
Probably hundreds. Some of my favorite shows ever. You have absolutely been a huge part of.
I appreciate that. I feel the same way. That's why it's such a treasure to have you show up, man. I wish I could get your brother on because this is his old time slot, and I miss
Yeah,
him. You
yes,
know,
yes.
I'm,
No, I don't mind at all. I know you're busy, so I have actually adjusted my schedule to suit yours.
you are a freaking true friend, man. That means a lot. With the time difference, uh, and I never know when you're going to be on. I'm apparently
I
this
never
chaotic,
know either, man.
neutral old bastard is more lawful than he likes to admit because I have a really tight schedule of everything. That's going to change in a couple of months when Jackie's no longer in school, and I'm hoping to drag him in front of the camera every morning, get him going, and piss him
Nice.
off because he's. Oh,
You're
hey,
chaotic neutral. I'm lawful evil,
I've
or
heard
maybe
that. I've
lawful
heard that.
neutral.
Bloodworth, if you go into my Discord, it's at the very top. You know what? I'm just gonna take a huge chance, and I'm just gonna drop the link here for you, so you don't have to go
Yeah,
digging around for it. Bloodworth.
yeah.
Whoops.
Rich is great. Everybody loves Rich.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard anybody ever say anything bad about that guy.
No, I hear he's kind of smelly, but I wouldn't know. I never met him in person. I'm hoping to rectify that.
Mm.
Of course, I'm
Well,
teasing.
I
But
wouldn't
there you
judge
go.
anybody about that. I mean, I'm a hillbilly from Kentucky, and my first house I grew up in didn't even have running water. So
So it's stuck with you your whole life. Is that what you're saying?
I'm
I
just saying I'm not judgmental about people's,
Yeah.
situations.
Now if I could get the big Canadian moose, I mean bear over here, that would be a feather in my
I was
cap.
talking about that last night, Shadow. You were like on my wavelength. I was like, I hope I know Bear's mad at Mobius. I hope he's not mad at me, and because some of the funnest times we had was you and him and I
And
just
Bloodworth, don't
going,
Hey
don't
guys.
going.
don't.
Yeah, how you doing, DM
You're looking
Bloodworth?
really good today. What is tickling you inside, man? You got a glow about you.
Oh no, what? New camera. So
No, look at that, folks. You can see the twinkle in his eye from all the
I'm in
way
a
from
good mood
over here
today.
across the country.
It's still spring break, and it's the first day my wife went back to work, so I'm solo until probably about 4 or 5 o'clock this evening. So gives me plenty of time to do a lot of gaming. Getting a lot of things ready for both the game tonight and some other videos
What
throughout the
game
day.
tonight?
So
I wanted to talk to you about something real quick. I am really glad you and OGGM are talking again.
mhm.
'Cause I was there, and I saw, the stuff that was going on, and it was just a total miscommunication and misunderstanding. Nobody was wrong. Nobody was a bad guy. OGGM. If you guys don't know and
Are you
haven't bought
talking the
it,
Canadian OGGM
No.
or the
no, that's
California?
OGG. That's OGG. He and the two are like diametrically opposed, but I'm sure they'd get along famously in a game because OGGM is one of the funniest, silliest guys I've ever met, and God bless him for it with all that he's done and gone through in life, and he still can make me giggle and laugh like nobody else. Dean, you're right up there with him. Your deadpan humor, man.
Mm.
You just slay. You just slay, man. How you
I
doing?
appreciate it. Uh,
Y-
Better than yesterday, but still not over the coal.
A bunch of
I
my
wish I could.
friends.
OGGM,
What's going on?
Say what?
OGGM and I were actually getting along the other day, and I was pretty convinced he hated my guts because he said so. I guess he's over it now.
That's sometimes a little time and distance, make the heart grow fonder, as they say, or something. I
I
don't
got
know.
no beef
Uh,
with him or
you
anyone.
know, we're all here for the same damn reason, right? To play some
Right.
silly freaking games with, I mean, to make believe and pretend, like we were 12 again. The
Mm.
least we can freaking
Nah, I'm
do
here to
is
correct you every time you're wrong on AD&D.
you missed out because Sean was here yesterday talking about
I was
stuff,
here with him.
and you were quiet for a change. Um,
Eh,
and he always reminds me of stuff that I just like totally throw out the freaking door, the window when it comes to AD&D. I love that game as much as I pick on it because I don't know, just I guess cantankerous old fart.
Mm.
Um, so what's everybody got
I
playing? Oh,
always, whatever about AD&D, I really didn't understand. I always defaulted to BX.
see, I never,
So,
I
like the initiative with all the segments and all that, I was just like, nah, just roll dice six.
see for me,
We're not doing all
BX came out after I've been playing, AD&D for I mean, almost a decade. So
Mhm.
it was like this upstart, trying to freaking, push Gary out and kind of water things down or take it back to, white
I think
box.
BX, Gary was still there. Metzer is when Gary was kind of on the way
Okay,
up.
I get those two confused, but either
Yeah,
way,
because I'm talking about the Moldvay Cook version,
because
and there
for
was
us,
only the
when,
two
when when it came
boxes.
out, it seemed
They came
like
out in like '83.
Yeah, that
it's
that box that came out in '83. That was my first purchase of D
Yeah.
and D. I played AD&D First Edition. That was my first introduction to it. But the box set was the first one that I bought. Was the
You
Moldvay?
see, we've been playing AD&D for years and years, and it just seemed like, kind of watered down. You know what I mean? And dumbed down, and we called it the baby D&D. I had never read it, so I didn't know. I just knew that these hardcover books seemed, more grown up than the way it was produced. Maybe it had, come out in hardback and did a few things the way I liked, which it didn't. It changed all my favorite things. Race could do more than just one thing. As a class, which I still don't understand why people like that. And the arguments that you could just make your own character and be who you want. It was like, well, what if I want to be an elven cleric or a dwarven thief? Well, you can't in the later editions, which then went and swapped. Now everybody can be everything, which is not at all to my liking. People have limitations. Oh, we got another person trying to get in here. Oh, geez, we're never going to get a word in edgewise. Quick, hurry up and say what you got to say.
Hey, hi.
Hey,
Hi,
how's
Yeoman.
it going?
I was just listening to bits and pieces, and you know,
Omen
Lounging.
hiding out in the
I
tunnel.
just woke up. Yeah.
I
So you
appreciate
sleep in
that
a subway tunnle?
Actually that was in
you
Mosul
work with
Dam,
Squirrel Hermit, don't you?
about 100, probably a couple 100 feet under the water. So
That looks just like one of Squirrel Hermit's job sites. He sends me, pics from his top secret, mole man, job sites all the time, and I'm like, that is crazy. Uh, we all dream about being in dungeons and stuff underground, and I'm like, have you ever seen one? Look at this crap. You don't want to be there. You
Well,
know, you know.
that's why they have the big bucks. That's why they get paid big bucks for
I'm
money.
telling you, man,
For
Squirrel must be rolling in
adventurers.
dough.
Anyway,
That's why he's always giving stuff away because he's got no room to park his Lamborghini. Uh,
Hmm.
he's not on a bearskin rug, is he? What's up, Death Angel? No, it looks like he's warped reality. Uh, see, he got sucked back into the warp.
no, I'll let you guys keep talking about your BX and your AD&D.
No. I mean, I've since read it. I'm literally looking to buy a copy just so I can go through it and go, okay, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. Uh,
It's
so people understand, and it's not just a, you know, not liking the new thing because I'm so entrenched in the old thing. I mean, I went on to play Palladium for a decade after that.
yeah, well, I
It
did
wasn't
too. I mean,
Shadow.
I got sucked into Palladium when they had Robotac, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
No Palladium talk, guys.
Well,
Anyway, Shadow. You can look at BX in PDF form. You can find it free actually, but
Yeah.
I have. You know what? No, You know
the
what?
way
I,
BX
I
rules is nostalgia because so many of us older guys started with the purple box. I mean, rationally, everyone knows that the Metzer or the Compendium are better, but I mean, because Bargle and Alara and all that, right? They were
no,
just better games as far as learning to play the game
Mhm.
and extending
Absolutely.
up to level 36 and everything. But
sure, but
so
if
many
my
of us started with that damn purple box with the Errol Otis art, and it just like
speaking of Earl
we
Otis,
loved
I'm
it.
going to talk about him in a minute. Thank you for bringing him up. If my 12-year-old brain could figure out the player's handbook and the DMG, what happened?
I don't know because your 50-something-year-old body can't figure out AD&D now. No.
He has
Well, it's
brain
all
calcified.
right. Well, to be fair, I have read hundreds of other games, so if I mix up and
I do that all the time. I conflate different systems all the time.
Well, the reason I'm joking is because I am in Shadow's AD&D game, and we are playing, which I think is what most people really did, a combination of BX, AD&D. We threw out a lot of the complexity that comes from AD&D. We used kind of the simplified version of D&D, but then we wanted, well, I just don't want 4 classes. I want 12 classes. And, I want this. Now, I will say this much. For barrier of entry, basic D&D, which is your first 3 levels, that was easy. It was simple. It was fast. It had good modules, so you knew where to start. You had the same thing.
Do you mean this one?
The red box. Talking about the red box.
Mine was magenta. It was a slightly different
No,
color.
magenta was Moldvay Cook.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So not the Dragon Wizard.
No,
not kind of the one that's in the bluish color. I'm talking about the full color. But no, there was a difference. There was kind of the magenta, and then they had brought out the bright red box, which had the fighter, and the dragon on the front. But
right,
that's Metzer.
That's Menster. That's what's known as BX, or Beckme, I should say. That's what's known as Beckme.
Yeah, Metzer's Beckme.
Which is really weird because I'm like the only guy I know that absolutely loves the I part, which is the Immortals rules. I freaking love those books.
Even Frank didn't like those rules.
It's a
Even
different
Frank
game
says
now.
that's not D&D.
Yeah, it's a different game.
No, it's not even close. It's so different, and the whole goal and everything is.
I will say as much as, and I'm going to look at it because I'm looking at it in retrospect as my 8-year-old self. My friend got the Moldvay Cook, which then they had different. I was like, what happened? Because it only sold for like 1 or 2 years, and we got the expert set, and the blue, and that was fantastic. We said, this is a lot of fun, and Keep on the Borderlands, I think, is an excellent beginner module for any game, AD&D or D&D. And then you have X1, which that just inspired my, I guess it was 9-year-old self, that
I
this
love that
has
one too. I love that one too. I also
dinosaurs, drunken dinosaurs, spell using spiders. I mean,
Thundercats riding Thundercats. Come on, that
yeah,
was awesome. That image alone spawned a decades long campaign where I made up all the different kind of Thundercats as playable races, and I still use that stuff today. But let's not forget Expedition to the Unknown. That was a genius move. Every module should have been written like that with the variable monsters and treasure.
I
You know how
never
much
saw
that would have.
B1. I'll be honest, I did never got B1 until I got the Goodman Games version because they stopped printing it.
I
Yeah,
might have an
it
extra copy
came.
because it gave you like 50 treasures and 50 monster encounters,
Yes,
and just
Yeah, B1 they put in a lot of the early Magenta Box Moldve, and then they swapped it out for B2.
I
So
got it.
depending
I
on
got it
when
in my
you got
original
your
basic
Magenta
box.
Box, you could get B1 or B2.
so I'm just saying that I'm going again by my 8-year-old self. So this was 1982 or so. Um, and that's when I first got into it. But you're right. What happened was there weren't that many modules. I mean, I bought basically every module because I kind of got into the Pokemon style of, my 10-year-old self later on. I got to buy every one. They're like, oh my God, they kept having, and I was in Germany. It was A4. So I go down to the, was it the Stars and Stripes or AFES, whatever, because it was the bookstore version, which I think was the Stars and Stripes. So I go down there and I go buy the book, and all the teenagers are playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And you're right. But going back through the rules, and to be fair, I've been reading Global Master recently. If you actually look at it, everything had to be declared. I just don't think that it was a good game for a beginner. And I think what we all did, and I think we still do it, is we ignored the parts that took forever, like weapon speed and weapon length, and said, okay, we'll just kind of adjudicate it. And we said, all right, let's go through this. We'll get this, and then we said, oh well, it's better because it has more damage for this weapon. Yeah, two-handed weapon does 3 to 18 against a large monster. Of course, we'll pick that one. But
Mhm.
reality of it
Or
is,
D12 for the halberd.
yeah, it was. But but if you look at it, I'm going by the numbers. The numbers show that BX sold more copies
Oh, of
than
course.
than first edition first and second edition of AD&D in its entirety. And it's
Okay,
because it's
but
very accessible.
but those kind of statistics, lies, damn lies, and statistics. There were more people playing, more people who were opened up to the hobby in general, more people on the planet. Does that really mean that it did better? You know what I
And
mean?
well, if it sold
Kinda,
more, I mean, it's one thing to say the BX version sold more. That's fine, but we're talking. But then people bought Expert, which means obviously they liked the basic set. So then they bought the Expert set. So my view on this, and listening to a lot of people, is, and I look at like my son's group, and I don't know about your son's group. There are those of us nerds who like just delved into it. Like we remembered, we were memorizing whole sections of books. And I was buying the Dragon magazine, but we're kind of the minority. Most people bought it. They were able to roll up a character in about 10 minutes. It didn't take forever. They didn't get analysis paralysis. You want to play an elf? Boom, here's an elf. You want to play a dwarf? Boom, this is what they have. You got
yeah,
you got enough character classes, go. And what I really liked about it was I think he took the voluminous, and again, talking about the Dungeon Master guy, was what, 256 pages in like
yeah.
8-point font. Um, it's no, I'm not kidding. When you compare the
I know,
two,
I know.
is the BX was actually very readable. It was 64 pages, I think, for one, and then it was everyone could learn the rules very quickly. It gave, I think, really good advice for a beginner DM. I was reading, just like, look at the retainers. It's expected you can have retainers. It kind of tells you right there, not very deep in the book. It doesn't go through all the math. It doesn't include all of the other weird stuff. It was BX was also not expected to play in a like a West Marches style either. BX was expected, hey, this is the game you play with your friends, and that's it.
Right.
Whereas AD&D was kind of hey, we're expected to have multiple groups, and you're all playing with what RPGA.
Right. It was definitely meant for an older audience, clearly, because no kids were going to be able to, comprehend or
I don't know.
make that
That was
flex.
my introduction at 11 years old. We started at 11 with AD&D.
I went over to AD&D when I was 9.
You have like 50 players in your group.
Oh,
No. But we understood the rules well enough. We knew how to, or at least my first dungeon master knew how to streamline the system. Like, we never messed with weapon speed factors or weapon damage based on based on armor class adjustment for weapon type or any of that kind of stuff. So we didn't get into any of that stuff. He discarded we never messed with psionics. We didn't mess with there were so many things in it that that he was like, that's optional. That's not, I'm not going to bog us down with that kind of thing. But he did have us use, we had to have spell components, and if you used up your spell components and you had no way of getting them again, you're not casting the spell, even if it is the next day, even if so he was a stickler for having the gear you needed in order to adventure. So yes, we were calculating how many arrows do you have left. He even had the thought process of saying, well, you can recover certain arrows, based on your skill level and your intelligence of how to, extract those things. If you were a Fletcher as a secondary skill, as a background or whatever, then you almost couldn't, be in a situation where you wouldn't be able to recover your arrows because you just knew how to, how to shoot, how to handle them, and how to, extract them out of a kill as well. So then there were certain elements that he introduced, and there were parts that he threw out. It just wasn't something that we had any struggle with from 78 until we were really more teenagers and higher understanding of things. That's when we elevated and we went to other game systems that were, that's when we shifted to like Call of Cthulhu. That's when we still played AD&D, but we started doing other game systems that were a little bit more crunchy, believe it or not, than a little bit more crunchy than AD&D was.
Dean, how did you get your start?
I started what you call it late 2E going into 3E. I'm pretty sure what she had bought Dungeons & Dragons at that point. So my only experience with BX and the rest of Beckme and the Bruce Companion is actually just encountering James and then later what you call Mr. Wall's videos about Mr. Aura.
I still have a lot of the Mystara things.
What do you play now, Dean?
Right now, it's well, what I play right now, not what system I played. Right now, I'm just playing Pathfinder because my other game went bust. But other than that, I also recently been playing a one-shot of Vampire. No, sorry, not Vampire Hunter. The original Hunter, not the one where you are teaming up with spirits.
Okay,
right.
And
so the orange
realized
covers?
that 20 is not good for that because apparently the dice roller hates us. And so you're about to say, Omen?
No, the orange color books for Hunter.
I forgot if it's called the Vigil or whatever it was, but it was the first one, not the like I said, not the one where not the second edition one. Sorry, not the new World of Darkness, nor the one that went into the end game, but the original.
Let's see if this shows up. The Hunter, the Reckoning. or a different
No,
one?
it's not showing.
Sorry, but it's an orange cover. Actually, I'm noticing that it's funny because my book spine is faded, whereas the rest of the book still has color. But no, it was called Hunter the Reckoning was the first version, and then they have, I think, the one that came out in the 2000s.
Yeah, the
which was a
one
different.
where yeah, to the end game of the last night, were like, oh, you are being possessed by spirits.
Okay.
And then there is, of course, this New World of Darkness one, which goes back to the, how should you say, actual hunters instead of like spirit-possessed hunters.
Yeah, I I think a lot of us, like most things, at least for me, is I enjoyed D&D so much that, of course, once the monster manuals came out, which had more monsters, I just grabbed those. And then, that kind of moved us towards that direction. Because now you had Fiend Folio, Monster Manual 1, and Monster Manual 2. Oh, more monsters. Always better.
That is a good feeling for D&D also, because it's hard to release Game Master material. So the next monster manual is, yeah, that's the next thing at the menu, so to speak.
It's I like I said, as I'm looking at both, I think from a playability game standpoint, BX is superior. I think a lot of us like the options in AD&D, and so we threw those in. I know you say you don't like OSE. OSE is probably your original BX stuff, but if you want to look at the classic OSE, the advanced I think takes some of the best parts of AD&D and simplifies them to use in OSE. I like the advanced OSE. Oh, you want character classes with your races? Here's what you can do. Oh, you want races class? Well, this is what you can do. Oh, you want
I'm
this?
waiting to hear him go into Axe.
That's
Anybody?
exactly what advanced is. It basically just takes the concepts from AD&D that Shadow was talking about, how he liked, elf clerics and stuff,
Yeah.
and it converts it to BX rules.
Mhm.
So
I
that's why
mean,
when you're like, well, I don't like it. I'm like,
super
well,
easy.
you just have to look at what's there. I think the other real advantage for Beckme was it kind of moved characters slowly in there instead of taking a fire hose and shooting it at you, which is what AD&D does. You have to buy $3.
Yeah.
In basic, you're like, what level 1 through 3? Okay. Oh, look, now you get expert. Now it's up to 14th level. Oh, we have the companion, which includes, kind of doing your wards and stuff. And then once you get to master it, it's like, all right, go ahead. Sorry, I see that. Is that your little cyclopedia?
Yes, I
Yeah.
picked it up. So this is a
Yeah,
print on
I've got one
demand
of
one,
those.
but yeah, that's also I remember this one seeing this several times. Yeah, as a
It has
child.
all of Beckme except for I.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, and then they also
Is yours the drive-through version?
this is the drive-through version. Yeah, so
Okay, so
the maps are decent. Sorry, go ahead.
mine is when there are pages. Kind of could have swore there was a
they're
page
kind
number.
of blurry is what he's complaining about because it wasn't necessarily a good scan. That was his complaint. Because it's
Yeah,
literally a
well,
There was a time when you could get the compendium printed off of Drive-Thru RPG for less than it cost originally.
Oh,
I
yeah.
paid $29 for mine. It was one of the few purchases drive-through let me make before they put me on the ban list for whatever reason. To this day, they still won't really let me buy anything from them. And guys, I spent an obscene amount of money every month on games, and I would spend I'd spend at least $100 a month over there, easy, on
What do you
reprints of
do?
things.
They were
Pardon?
they were losing money on the print on demand for you. No.
Yeah, the print on
Yeah.
demand is they're also having like the issue that like they don't have their own like printing agency, so they're like reliant on
Mm-hmm.
someone else to do it. So that's also why someone like Alexander McCree, yeah, he has printed a man, but he doesn't like it because occasionally drive-through will be like, so we have to shift printers now. You have to rearrange everything.
So I have, and I know that James does too. I have the Axe stuff, the books, and what's funny is they're cheaper to buy it from him than it is to buy it through drive-through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got my originals that
No.
well,
We're talking about their
yeah,
collector's leather,
yeah,
editions
yeah.
are
I,
cheaper than
I got I
drive-through.
got I got the first edition, and as soon as I got them, I think they came out with new stuff, right, Bloodworth?
What's that?
Uh, Axe, you sent me.
Oh yeah. Well, that wasn't as soon as it took them. It was a couple years in between Acts One and then Volume Two or second edition.
It was like 10 years almost.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a long time. It
I
was
mean,
not.
he
Yeah,
bought
Yeah, it
those
wasn't
direct.
as
books.
quickly as like you see like some others. Like I just noticed that. I mean, OSC is coming out with the second edition, but that's still been a couple years. I know Castles and Crusades or Troll Lord Games just put out another printing of the player's handbook that was just released like in 2024. You know what I'm saying? So it's like literally did not last a year before they put out a new printing, and so there's just some companies they hold on for a while. Others don't. Sometimes when they do reprints, it's just like I'm not a big fan of we're eliminating the OGL, and we're just changing the names of everything. To me, that's not a reason to buy a new book.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
No, it's
I just won't. I just won't. I don't care that it's OGL or not.
And
You know what I'm saying? It's like
Bloodwords, I looked it up. The first, how should we say, between edition products released for Axe was by the Axe in 2023. Everything before that has been something small.
so what he did was he took all of the rules, like you said, and the OGL, which forced a lot of people to do a good second edition and things.
mhm.
So I understand that. Fortunately, they didn't follow through with it, but yeah. But I will say as much as the Axe books are. I mean, they're beast of books. But I have one of the guys I've played with. What he used the Axe books more is for his BX OSE games. He's like, well, I don't have a system for this. I'll go to Axe and just use that system because they're cross compatible. And so it was like, well, what about creating magic items, which I think they did a better job than a lot of the other stuff. Well, here's what we're going to do. And what I really like about it, and just for Shadow in particular, because I'm waiting for before all others, he just created 20 new character classes just for elves. And it's in, he's like, well, I did this, I did that. And I like the fact that he created classes individually for each race.
Mhm.
So it makes races
it
feel
makes a lot
unique.
of sense. I mean, a fighter hell, not even just races, but countries and continents and empires, etc. They're going to be different. Look at the samurai versus the fighter. You know what I mean?
They are.
vastly different.
But what I'm saying is for his
vastly different.
is for BX, the way that it works in there is rather than having, an elf having the same experience points as a fighter, an elf fighter having the same experience points as a human fighter. What he did is he said, hey, look, each race is going to have a class limit, which, to be honest, a class limit difference between 13 and 14 is not a huge deal because he caps it out at that. You're going to get the same. Players should be reaching about the end of their levels at about the same point for experience points. Very similar. But there is a cost for having an elf. And it's not, hey, guess what? If you want this...
it's called pointy ears, and all your friends are gonna die long before you're even middle aged.
Well, but the point being is, hey, look, elves, and I don't mind this, is if you want all the abilities that an elf has, you have to pay those in experience points to go up a level. I think that's fair.
That great article in Dragon Magazine where it allowed you to build any kind of character class you wanted, and the more things you gave the character class, the more XP it cost.
Yes,
and you could literally make the Ubermensch that had every ability in every class perk you could possibly imagine, but it would only cost you about 80,000 XP to get to second level.
Right. Well, that's essentially what Classes Race did. All right. It gave each race various traits or abilities that you would find attached to other classes. And so they were like the dwarf was primarily a fighter, all right, with extra dungeon delving, abilities and such. And so just a higher cost in XP to go up in levels with that. The elf as a class was a fighter magic user. And so it had the equivalent of multi-classing or dual classing, however you want to say it, but with an expansion of the number of experience points that it took. Now, for humans to do the same thing, they could not
do them simultaneously, concurrent.
Yeah, they could not dual class. What they can do is they can
other.
change a class and pick up a new class and work their way up until in that new class up to a certain point.
I got a question for you guys because you just brought this up. Say you got an elf, right? In AD&D, and he was a fighter magic user, just cause, right? And all his friends have died of old age, and he's like 427 years old, right? Could they then quit being a fighter and a magic user, go train and become like a cleric thief?
I have a. I'm sorry to answer a question with a question, but what has that to do with everyone dying?
Oh, well, as sort of a catalyst to start a new life.
Oh,
because he was hanging out with humans and hobbits, and they're all dead now of old age, and it's like, what am I going to do? Oh, I know.
I would say no, because elves wouldn't feel that compulsion to change direction in what they're doing.
What if they maxed out?
What?
What if they maxed out and were still viable and young enough?
That's not the way that they function anyway. I mean, it's like that's not culturally, something that they would even think about.
You know what I would do is I'd say, I will allow you to do it. It takes, 30 or 40 years, but then recalculate your experience points as a fighter magic user thief. As far as cleric, the answer to me would be, or if you can do a fighter magic user cleric, okay, that's fine. I'll let you recalculate whatever experience points and let you spread out. I mean, AD&D wasn't, and D&D as a whole wasn't really meant to have the class changes and stuff like that. So, that wasn't really
just
the
because
idea.
I've run some really, really long campaigns, like really long, like decades long.
Yeah.
And people are running the same freaking character because, you know how players are. They don't. Why make up a first level character when I got this 32nd level badass here who could still go adventuring? You know what I mean?
I never had an AD&D character go beyond 18th level.
Really?
I mean, and that was playing 2 or 3 times a week for 12 years. It just there shouldn't be. I guess the experience levels you gain a lot faster in BX or in BECME that you do in AD&D, but there was never. I mean, we never had it like that where you have a 30th level character. Just well, first of all, it doesn't exist in AD&D, but secondly,
what's up, RPG Jen Exile and Sean? I was going through Dragon Magazine and some of the other magazines and things like that with DM Bubba. And back in the earliest issues of Dragon Magazine, they would literally talk about all the dang time, 40th and 50th level, basic or white box characters, just because they were, going into dungeons like the Wee Warriors where, you would find, a Balrog, or in one of the dungeon modules, there's 3 separate 500,000 gold piece gems, just crazy stuff because back in the Wild West of the hobby, there were no guidelines, there were no rails, no
Well, yeah, there
limits.
was no written rules. There was no written rules.
The other part is look at what he did in AD&D, where he made
We're
training.
level caps, guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, they were
So
not. Well, there
500,000
were for
XP to an elf is only going to get him to like level 11 or 12 anyway. And then
uh,
he's done. He can't level no more.
but
Well,
but but but
it,
what you're talking about, Shadow, is something that I know that the Gygax railed against. Like, how are people doing this? Because people did not enforce training. People did not enforce, hey, you can
Mhm.
only go up one level at a time. Hey,
oh,
this was
I don't think it was that. I think honestly, from what I understood, because there was something that actually sort of confirmed my notion, was that people were going into dungeons and there'd be a room and there'd be 8 freaking ancient dragons in it, or 6 Balrogs,
Yeah,
or
but that's not.
I know it's insane and very
Yeah, that's not
immature.
playing. That's not playing in the spirit of the game. All right. First of all, it's a total. It's a total. Not that Gary really cared too much about, dungeons that made sense. All right. So
Uh-huh.
dungeons very rarely had an ecosystem that made any sense whatsoever. I mean, on the
Right?
Borderlands, the Caves of Chaos are a perfect example of it. It's like, how are these things living right next door to each other?
Yeah, I will
How
admit,
can they?
Cave of Chaos, I always split them up and have travel time between them.
well,
Yeah,
they were
was it
still
what
within like
between
Can
them?
half a
tell you
day.
how they're all
Yeah,
worshippers of the evil god that the temple is referencing, who may or may not be Thurston. So all of the humanoids in the Caves of Chaos are there for a singular purpose.
Yeah, but the
But it
humanoids
doesn't
makes
stop
more
them from
sense.
whacking each other every now and
Yeah.
then.
Well, no, the humanoids you can make more sense of it because you would just say that there's a hierarchy amongst those humanoids. So it's like the goblins are there because they are the chattel slaves of the
Hobgoblin.
of the hobgoblins or of the orcs or whatnot. The bugbears are more aligned with the goblins because they're a goblinoid anyway, and so that you can make sense of. But what the hell's the Medusa doing there? I mean, it's like,
She's in prison, and you can apparently somebody in the evil temple captured her and threw her ass in the prison.
yeah, but it's
Then you
just
gotta
a
remember there's the level whatever cleric back at the keep itself that's actually
Yeah, but
affiliated with the
yeah.
I gotta ask, how did anything not just completely succumb to the wandering? What was it, whites that were in there?
because you can keep whites away
yeah,
usually
one
with
dice six
it.
whites.
it
You run
Why wasn't everything
or
a
else you
white
die.
after like a week?
because
Yeah,
Right?
so
because
I'm just
whites
saying,
stopped.
it's like, so if you're going into a dungeon room and there are eight ancient red dragons, which there's probably only about you know
Well, you're dead.
theoretically there's probably only about 8 in the entire world that are
Yes.
like that, because they would slaughter each other, and fight each other over that dominance. And it just, your dungeons need to make sense. And there has to be, and going back to
Look at me
what
getting all
DM
defensive
James was
about
saying.
P2.
um,
Like,
he
you
was
shut
very
your
strict
damn
about
mouth about
leveling
P2.
and having to pay for going up that next level. And
Mhm.
Ernie was famous for saying, "Oh yeah, when it was time for his character to level up, he had to sell off all of his magic items, in order to gain enough experience, enough coin to then go from like 11th to 12th level." It was like he was selling off everything that he had, just to go up a level. And yes, Gary was very, very strict with that rule because he was probably tired of his sons being ultra powerful. And that's what the Tomb of Horrors was for. The Tomb of Horrors was to, kick them down a step, with their
It,
characters.
Well,
it,
yeah, that's why there were things like whites and vampires that
Yeah.
would drain levels. But in a majority, and we're growing up in various game stores where I was dungeon mastering for hire back in the '80s and whatnot. I was watching grown people our age playing with these kinds of insane characters with insane amounts of treasure, or at least just following, like for the dragons, an ancient red dragon has 200% of what's listed, which means you don't roll percent, you double what the maximum treasure there is. So that's like 120,000 gold, right off the bat, just gold for
Mm.
an ancient red dragon. You kill that guy, and you're walking out with close to a
Well,
million in treasure.
well,
Yeah,
what
You know
you're
but
what I
you
mean?
supposed to
can't.
do is
How
this,
you
to
how
its
are you
defense.
carding it?
Portable
Well,
holes.
a lot of times,
I
not,
mean, at that level, that's the least of their worries. They got a guy with a portable hole making teleport trips back and forth.
Yeah.
It was
I don't think you were.
absolutely
I don't think you were
gonzo.
with my. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut somebody
Real
off.
quick, I think I'm gonna head out and lay down for a bit. Just
all
not
right,
hang
take
out
Okay,
care,
with you
I hope
Dean.
you
guys.
feel better, man. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah,
You feel better, Dean.
Yeah.
I
Have
at
a good
least
one.
plan on being alive tomorrow.
Yes,
Okay,
I
well,
know
that's
you will.
good. Yeah, one day at a time. One day at a time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Odds
If
have
you
are.
a
come
good
back
one.
a little
God bless,
pale,
brother.
we just won't touch you. We'll just, make sure. Anyway, but
Yeah. There were no holds barred, no limits to the craziness I saw back in '79 through
there, there, there,
'84.
there were no
With
limits. I was as a kid either. But my point being is the way that
these
Gary
were
envisioned the
grown
game
ass men and
versus the way
women.
that people played it were two very different things.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what I'm trying to say is, um, and to be fair, I'm looking at this. No group is easily being an ancient red dragon. They are if they buy protection from Dragonfire and a few others, and you plan well. But I think part of the problem that I have with this is exactly like you said. Is I remember at one point we decided to kill Lolth off with like first level ninjas from the Dragon magazine, and we did it by destroying tons of holy water. Now, what if, of course, we're talking like we're like 9 years old, and the teenagers went, well, she would never be alone. And I'm like, you know what? In retrospect, you're absolutely right. It's
Mhm.
not that she's stupid. I think that all too often it's
Hey,
played that
Sean,
way.
welcome
Hey,
back.
Sean, are you feeling better, Sean?
You found your
Oh
hairbrush.
yeah, I got a little bit of the lingering cough and postnasal drip, but mostly I'm back to normal.
What is on your shirt?
Aku,
Oh yes, from
Samurai Jack,
Samurai Jack.
Yeah,
Nice.
fun and ancient
And he was
land.
voiced by Mako in the beginning.
he
Yeah.
was. Well, and then Mako died for season 5, I believe.
Yeah,
so
no,
they-
Right. And
Find
Mako was
replacement.
also the voice of Uncle Iroh in the original Avatar cartoon series.
Conan's Chronicler.
I liked it, but I mean, just the difference between season 4 and season 5 of Samurai Jack was like what 8-9 years. It was something insane.
Did
Yeah,
any of you
Samurai
guys
Jack.
watch?
Well, season 5 was amazing, but it was completely tonally
Any of you
different.
guys ever watch Symbiotic Titan? Another one of his cartoons.
No.
I
Maybe-
loved
pretty
Gennady Tartakovsky.
Primal was great if you've watched Primal.
He's done
Primal was
Primal.
good,
He
yeah.
did. I still love Dexter's Lab.
Oh, of course. Oh, classic.
Which he did. He also did the very first place I think that we saw Grievous.
Yes, the first Clone Wars cartoon series.
Yes, the one that was actually animated.
Yeah,
And-
no, that was amazing.
Mhm.
You put it all together, it's basically a movie. It's Star Wars Episode 2.5.
Yep.
But it was so good. Anyway, back to the D&D talk. I logged in because you guys were talking my language.
Uh-huh.
What were you talking about before I popped in? There was
The insane things that Dungeon Masters allowed back in the day to continue the game because their players were all 25th plus level and adamant about not retiring their characters.
right, but that's an individual. That's a subjective thing. That's the DM's problem, the DM's fault. That's
Yeah.
not a
It was a
problem.
very common problem. I worked at a game hall where there were like 15 tables. All of the tables had a DM. All of the DMs were like our age now.
Mhm.
Okay, but I was the young kid learning from these guys, and the crazy stuff I was hearing that the people that would come in with their crazy characters and the DMs like, sure, no problem, it's $2.75 an hour. have a seat. Let me see your character sheet. 50th level, freaking whatever. Sure, no problem.
Well, but
It was just
I mean, that's
That's
those guys. That's their table. That's if they're
yeah.
having fun,
well,
then so
That
be
is
it.
my,
by no
my
means a significant a significant
I'm
statement of
wondering,
overall
because
how people
not only
ran.
did I hear about that stuff in Dragon Magazine, but I was over here on the West Coast where most of you guys are not, correct?
Mhm.
Right.
I was Middle America.
So maybe it was more of a West Coast Gonzo thing where, because it wasn't like a one off. This was a regular, everyday, 50 players coming in every day, Monday through Sunday, excuse me. Randos coming in with their freaking crazy ass characters. It
Yeah.
wasn't like rare. It was like the norm for me.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be a unique experience because a lot of people now, as well as then, played for the power fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And you want to have that feeling of exceptionalism, and it takes a sort of a maturity as you play to realize that the game is more rewarding when you pare it back and play just the baseline rules and not give players everything they want, they have to earn it, that sort of thing. So
Mhm,
you've
mhm.
got somebody pulls out a 15th level character in a campaign where they've been through the fucking ringer. That character has more meaning as opposed to Santa Claus DM, who's like, well, I want my guys to have fun, so I'm going to let you survive. Oh,
Yeah.
you killed that red dragon with 120,000
And
gold.
you get a black razor, and you get a black razor, and you get a
Exactly,
black
Yeah.
razor.
Well, see,
Yeah.
this is where, again, I know why you don't like Dark Sun. This is why when I was in 8th grade, I ran it by the book, and at the time I realized, oh, you're supposed to get experience for treasure. Oh my God, this makes a huge difference. And so the players just went go hunting for whatever was around there, and they zoomed up to 40th level within a few months just by trying to go hunt stuff. And I just went, I said, look, I'm just capping you at 40th level. You're not getting any more experience points after this point. And it gets, because things do get, I know that you were okay with it, but as a DM, I didn't find it that enjoyable once players hit a certain power level. I want them to.
For me, it was no big deal because I in addition to playing a lot of D&D, I played a crap ton of Villains and Vigilantes and other superhero games of the era where powerful characters weren't uh, like a big issue. They were already playing powerful characters. It was coming up with realistic, reasonable challenges that weren't just ridiculous amounts of red dragons and balrogs with their bags of holding full of treasure for the players to take. In a
Yeah,
superhero game, there's no treasure.
but I don't like superheroes, and that was my big thing. So I think
Sure, sure.
that's where it bifurcates. When you start looking at the different
Mhm.
types of players, um, I like the grittiness. Again, I agree with you. I don't like first level, but I like starting characters off at 3rd level. You're powerful enough, but you're not so powerful as that. You just like run forward and I'm going to Leroy Jenkins everything, and
Right.
it's the same thing with anyone that's played a video game. I can turn it on so I can't get killed by anything, but that isn't the fun of the game unless I'm just
Right.
trying to explore. Which you're right. In certain cases, it's more fun to do the exploration and find out mysteries and things. And you're
Mhm.
like, look, I just don't want to dive left and right from that. I think that
Exactly.
and to be fair with Sean, I think Sean's done a great job for his games. And you're right. I know you love AD&D, and I've gone back and reread the rules over and over and realized whether it's Shadow's game or when I played, I wasn't playing real AD&D. I was playing a facsimile of AD and BX AD&D, and
Well, I
um,
mean, I'm always going to fall back to the afterward. They're
yeah,
according to that. There there's a million different ways to play, and they're all okay.
well, that's why there's 7 editions of Dungeons and Dragons, and it goes
Mhm.
from the white box that we have, which when you look at white box, there were not the limitations that he put in AD&D, and I think he put those in specifically because he was fed up of seeing 50th level characters. And so when people are like, well, I have such and such level character, he's like,
And
well, wait a minute. Even if you start at
I have to run,
1970,
guys.
oh,
You have a good
okay,
one.
sorry.
I'll see you tonight.
I mean,
Yep.
if you include training times in a 1-to-1, now all of a sudden you have to do this. And I'll be honest, the one thing I do not like about training cost is is the fact that a thief can go up at 1,250 experience points, but he can't get the gold, to train very easily. So it's almost like you're going to be dirt poor for the first 7 or 8 levels, which
That's
I
the point. That is the exact point. But the I've heard that thief argument before, and it doesn't actually work out that way often in the wash, because you also remember training costs aren't just gold. You can trade things. You can trade missions. You can do a quest for your trainer. A thief is likely going to be a thief's guild. The thief's guild is going to, it's easy enough to say, okay, you know what, we're gonna train you up, but you got to do this job for us.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you start pumping in the kind of gold the training would require, be looking at metropolises springing up around training centers that would blow away the whole entire medieval trope.
Well, that
So,
again, looking at the baseline rule and ignoring potential context is another way to sort of misinterpret the rule. So the idea of this elite training, you have to remember the demographics of the character you've got are of the world. 1 in 100 people is adventuring class, right? So you're going to have, like, the reason this training is so expensive is because it's so specialized. Even a character getting to 4th level, they're almost a god in a world where everybody is 0 level.
I gotta roll you back on that. If that's the case, then I mean, are you saying that your king, your mayor, if he's not that 1 in 100, he's a 2 to 5 hit pointer?
Yeah, kings can be 0 level, absolutely.
And so then the town guard and all those other guys, so that
The
players,
majority of the town guard is going to be 0 level. The occasional sergeant will be level 1, right?
well,
A
because
level
it says
1,
like in all the
level 1
monster,
is an elite fighter, right? They're an
but
elite.
in all of the like monster sections where it talks about if you have X number of troops, you've got this level guy and you've got a
Yeah,
captain.
right,
So
because they're
the bigger
the
the
exceptional
place,
one.
it would stand to reason to me that the 1 to 100 really only
that's total population.
Yeah,
right, and you got to
That
start counting
includes
the
women and
kids and the
children
chickens
and
and the
everybody else.
eggs and
that's your
otherwise you
baseline.
would literally have every town would be ruled by adventuring characters who subjugated the towns and
But
cities
A
and
lot
cities.
of them
every
are Shadow.
adventurers
Read
are
the
going to be
Greyhawk
super rare.
campaign.
Sorry, what do you say, James?
I said a lot of them are. Just read Greyhawk.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you
I have it. I
actually,
read it, and I also read like every module just about ever written, and every town had like every like NPC was like 4th level this, 7th level that. It seemed like those
Right.
numbers were
Well,
kind of skewed.
they are
Uh,
skewed. Okay,
Right, but
there's another.
what Mage's Musing is saying is that the guard is a 0 level warrior. It's not even a fighter. It's a 0 level warrior.
I know how it works
And
and how
there's
it's
1
stated,
die
but in practice, it
6
was
hit
never that
points or
way.
1 die 8.
so
But
here's
they're
what you're
not even
looking at.
classed individuals.
So
Yeah.
Here's what you're
Kinda.
looking at, and I know it's a little skewed, but if you, on average, during war for mobilization, you can mobilize about 10% of your population going to the military. That's classically about your limit. Of that, if 10% of your population, then 1 in 10 of your mobilized warriors would be a leveled class.
Right.
That's way. I know that you're thinking a little bit differently, but again, we're including women and children and everything else. And I think that's part of the, when we start skewing it. I agree with you. Is if you that said is even, and I don't know how big the town of Hamlet is, and you have to include some surrounding areas too. There are not that many.
Hamlet's an exception to the rule because it's a hub, right? And that's the other thing you got to consider. Like, cities are going to be skewed because cities are going to draw in the exceptional people. Whereas, a town in buttfuck nowhere with 100 people, okay, well, they've got their one warrior who's probably the sheriff or whatever. And that's just a baseline you go on. Like, you skew as you need it. Now, you talk about modules and how they're overloaded with characters. Well, it's because the writers aren't going by the demographic baseline. They're writing whatever they want to write. But from a world building perspective, you want to consider those demographics, and then the game gets more rewarding that way. Because if you've got 99% of the population are just your 0 level people, your laborers, your workers, and stuff like that. The characters, their exceptionalism becomes more pronounced. That's why if you look at the
The
level
problem
type,
I have with that is 0 level also implies incompetent. So your
no,
blacksmith can't do shit.
No, it does not mean incompetent. It just means
It
that you're
implies. I
not.
said it implies.
Yeah, no,
Don't even
I mean,
imply.
it doesn't
Think
imply.
about Traveler. 0 level skill in Traveler means competence.
The idea of
So
the
if you have a
0,
guy with gun combat 0, he is competent.
Right, but
that,
everybody
I mean,
still has the same hit points.
Shadow, the idea behind 0 level is a meta reference, so you as the DM and player can understand their place in the skill hierarchy and how exceptional.
Right, but it
characters are.
doesn't. It's incredibly demeaning to humanity as a whole.
No,
Well,
no, no.
that's-
You find it
Well,
demeaning.
elf manity and dwarf manity too, because they're mostly all 0 level too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And it
it's 1 in
also
50
opens up or opened up. I've seen it many times where a group of player characters would just kill everything they came across, hoping to bump in to the kinds of characters like themselves, so they could kill them too and take their stuff.
but
Not
that's
saying I
fine.
ran games like
That's the
that.
players making their choice in the game, and if
Yeah.
you're the DM and you're fed up with that shit, well, look at these murderers. I guess the king is sending some elite guards after them, right? And that becomes the game.
That's what they were actually hoping for.
Well, the other
I
point
mean?
is,
It
Well,
does.
imagine this, Shadow. A kobold is only 1/3 of the level, which is actually less than 0 level.
Mhm.
They're
Or-
Because a 0 level hireling will have more hit points than a kobold.
Mhm.
but I think the other thing that you're looking at too is you're trying. It says for elves and dwarves it's 1 in 50. So if you're looking at a 10th level character, that is approximately 1 in 100 million.
Yeah, and that wasn't ever really the way it worked out.
No, that's not the way that people played, but that is the way the demographic is supposed to
Even
work.
in, I mean,
You're arguing with me about this. We're going off by what he states. Is that's what the way it's supposed to do? Now, he did say for Greyhawk, the reason he put higher levels for his kings and things, was specifically so they wouldn't just die from a knife blow immediately. So players could say, "I'm just going to kill off the king." That's kind of what they did. Now,
because the logical conclusion would be that the ruler of the land would be the most powerful adventuring character, and they'd all be evil.
well, but here's the other part. No, here's the other part
That's
too.
just human nature.
No. Well, here's the other part too: is there is a divine influence on there too. That's the other thing that people forget about with the, I hate saying is, 4th level says hero. That's the kind of people don't actually like read the titles like they should, which is
level
they
took those away for a reason.
Well, they took them away in 2E, but they lost a lot of the effect on that. Remember what it says in the DMG. A 6th level character is a high level character in Gary Gygax's world.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, that is not for us. We're generally like, well, 6 is the sweet spot of when you're kind of playing. 5th through about 9th, and of course you're expected.
See you later, Cal. But what Gygax wanted and what the world wanted and did with his and Arneson's idea are two completely opposite things.
But
Well,
that's fine.
Yeah.
People are going to play what they're going to play. That doesn't matter.
And the majority of humanity has decided to say fuck that and go for the superhero power fantasy. Look at all the games that are out there, made mostly because they didn't like the limitations and they wanted to play things that were more powerful, greater, whatever. Not saying that I agree with it. I've just noticed over the 50 years I've been in this thing.
But okay, but what is the point you're making with that? Like, if we're talking adherence to baseline rules,
it doesn't reflect reality.
No game reflects reality.
I think part of it.
Some of them are closer than others.
Well, I think part of it also comes down to how's the game designed. And you're right, everyone has this power fantasy of I'll go up in level. At a certain point, I don't know about you, but my players didn't care about the politics of human beings. They were out there to go slay giants and stuff like this. Which,
absolutely. it's just weird to me that only by virtue of being an adventurer could you ever go up levels.
Yes, but remember, we're also talking about luck. There's also divine aspect, which I think everyone ignores. Just like whenever you're talking about, oh, my character dies. I've been reading stuff about the Crusades. They don't think that way. We're gonna
Oh,
die and we're
I
gonna go to
know.
heaven. And players
Exactly.
players are
It,
going to be
it,
much more. Players are more defensive of their characters than their characters would be about worrying about losing their
Absolutely,
lives.
absolutely. When
Um,
you live in a world where you see, the regular, let's just call it Sunday, actual magical effects of your local priest coming into the temple and performing the service that might include, magically continual light or some other visible sign of absolute magic being bestowed, they would understand that this crap is real and there are benefits for following, let's say, a faith, like literally going to heaven or whatever when you die. So it's not like, the great unknown or nothingness or some of these other, nihilistic views.
So
They would have proof.
that's a perfectly reasonable conclusion in a world where there's tangible proof that gods exist,
Exactly.
right?
yeah,
100%. But that again,
and
that's a
demons and everything
contextual thing.
else. It's like I will fight this, and I will become part of the. It's and that's what happened throughout history, and it's only more in the modern age that it seems that
The
everyone's
people
like, oh no,
don't
but
have any faith in anything other than
what's here and now?
themselves.
I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist in AD&D. I'm like, you cannot be an atheist. You literally see the gods around you. You can say you don't believe in the
The word
gods.
wouldn't even exist.
Oh
Well, you
yeah,
say
exactly.
you don't worship the gods, but you
Right.
believing them when there is tangible proof. Right?
Yeah, it's like I don't believe in stoplights. Well, they're right there.
They're right
You know,
there. Yeah, but it's not unreasonable for a bitter man to say, "Well, I'm not worshiping any of these fathers. They're
absolutely.
causing
But
me
the word
trouble."
atheist wouldn't exist because there would be no such thing.
That's
That's
and to
just
be fair, as we look through the different iterations, the white box to AD&D, which included more of the power. I will say as much for the and I know that Sean and I are going to probably disagree on this, but one is I still like that you have every. If you're a fighter, you're a master of every weapon almost. But then I do like, and this is where I would change it up. And again, this is what D&D provides a great framework. The one thing I would do for changing things is I'd say, guess what? When you gain levels as a fighter, you get to specialize in weapons, but you don't get any negatives for any weapons you use. Because I really do like those weapon charts that they have in the rule cyclopedia. Hey, you get extra text. Guess what? You can do special
yeah, and I
maneuvers.
couldn't make hide nor hair sense of that when I was looking at it. It was insanely complicated for me.
It's actually
Uh,
pretty simple when you break it down. I did a video on it if you want to check it out.
Yeah. No, he did. He did a really good
my
job.
earlier point was in '77 there was this thing that came out called Arduin, right? And in it had a character class called Normals, okay, which was everybody else that wasn't an adventurer,
So
and they
zero
went up
levels.
levels. They went up levels like everybody else. They didn't get a crap ton of hit points because they didn't need them because they were normal people, but they had, you know, other skills that you could measure so that when you met the blacksmith, he would be competent up to his level to do whatever blacksmithing kind of things. So there might be things that he could do and there might be things that he could not do, so that you could kind of codify all the people so that everybody wasn't just like an easy mark for your scrupulous less scrupulous players, excuse me.
I'm going to bring up the technical specialist rules. Once you read them and understand them, then it seems kind of second nature. But you're
Yeah,
right. Additionally,
they're weird. They're weird at first glance, but they become fairly intuitive once you.
I think I think what was hard about it was the way it was formatted on the page. Because
yes,
you know what
that's
I
one of
mean.
those I would have to print out and put on the side, thing to go look
Yeah,
at.
yeah, because it was like, I have to look at it sideways and shit.
Well, but it was cool that certain weapons gave you armor class. I still like the fact that you could throw your sword. It
Right.
allowed you to do some cool stuff. I like the fact that Unlike,
until you got the Death Stalker shoot the sword blade sword.
yeah, well,
But
it's
you also remember the Beckme mastery rules. You know, you don't get them at first level. You have to earn
No,
them,
yeah,
and by the time you've
and
maxed out,
obviously
you're going to be like
there
15th
would be some
level.
training and
yeah.
specialized. You'd
Yeah,
have to go find the sword guy on the mountain.
you have to find a
You know,
grandmaster. Yeah.
Well,
I,
So
then you have to
I've
fight
done all
other
that with just
people.
regular proficiency rules for AD&D. You know, you didn't start out with it. You got to go find the guy. You got to go do the
yeah,
things, and sure, why not do the whole Luke and Yoda thing for a little while. The problem is, of course, that takes a lot of one-on-one time DM player, and you got 4, 5, 6 other players sitting around going, we're gonna go
well,
down and get
you
a
handle
burger.
it away from the table, or you know, you don't do it there. Or if it's something you can do in 10 minutes, then it doesn't matter.
Fortunate,
Or you round robin it. You round robin characters, which is what I did as a kid. Hey,
yeah,
so and so's out. We're going to play another. That I think part of it, and I think this is where Gygax was looking at with the way he was doing it. The expectation was players would play multiple characters because certain ones were out of the game during certain
For a while,
periods.
yeah, troop style, yeah.
And I think that helped. That Dark Sun did that. Actually, I like the way Dark Sun did it. Guess what? You have 4 characters, and as one character goes up in level, you can pick one of the other 3 that get to go up
mhm.
in level as well. And so you
That
kind
was
of
more of the West Marches style, trying to be shoehorned into a game that didn't have that many players.
well, it was deadly enough. The expectation was is when the
Mhm.
X character died, you just insert it first level again.
Sure, of
Um,
course.
so I didn't
What the
mind
hell?
that, but no, it's just I, I think that some ways is the way that we play the game or the way the game was played out in the wild versus the way that the designers had designed the game were 2 very different things. And I think
And
that's
again, that's why you ended up with, what is it, something like 3,000 different role playing games in existence right now versus
well,
just
some
the
of it
one.
is, I mean, let's be honest. Exactly the thing that you're talking about. Well, I want to retrain after so many days. Well, guess what? This is why I like skill-based games. And when Star Frontiers was, I think, my second RPG,
Hmm.
and that was completely different. That was not an AD&D based game at
Not
all,
even
even though it was
close.
printed by TSR.
No, no, not even
Um,
close.
but I loved it because the rules were really simple and fast. It was like, okay, here's what you do, and you kind of had a character class, but you could cross train. Hey, you were either technical, you were weapon, or you were like, what's it, medical or whatever. You know,
Mhm.
hey, different experience points depending on which track you picked. But everyone still could get different skills, and that was the expectation. And I like the fact the races were very different. Um, it didn't feel. Guess what? And your stats could go up because in AD&D you're fixed. It's not like real life where I can go work out and I can say, hey, I get stronger, or if I don't work out, I get weaker.
Yeah, it's
Um,
something every other, like damn near every other game fixed or changed. I should say not fixed
well,
because
I mean, 3E
it,
did some of the changes for that, and then you can see that in the Paladin and the Cavalier rules. Though I'll be honest, I wish that they had done that for all the character classes and said, hey, guess what?
well,
Every level you get.
the idea of that wasn't entirely. I mean, it existed all the way back in what was it? I was just talking about Expedition to the Unknown. There's a place in the dungeon where if you do a thing, you get a stat point.
Yeah, but what I meant, but it wasn't random. It was meant as I'm
Yeah,
saying. If you look at the
Yeah,
Paladin, Cavalier, and Unearthed Arcana, their stats could go up as they went up in level, slowly.
yeah. You roll a d20, and it basically added a percentage. So after a couple of levels, if you rolled multiple 20s or
I
enough,
thought it was D10s,
It's two
but
D10,
anyway,
and then
oh, is it 2D?
probably
Okay,
yeah. On average, you gain
the
about
point
one
to
stat
make
every 10
is
levels or
that
so. Yeah.
throughout history, intelligent people have figured out ways to become better at all of the stats, except hell, even comeliness. That's why makeup exists. There are and have always been easy, non-magical solutions to people becoming better at whatever your 6, 7 stats, and to make it so that you could only do so by magic was kind of dumb.
It was, but like I said, it was a simple system meant to go, hey, you've already reached your potential. But I will say as much when we talk about BX versus
Unless
AD&D.
you were a scholar, in which case you could go and learn wisdom. If you were a farmer or a lumberjack, you
Well,
clearly got stronger.
as you aged, you got intelligence and wisdom, but I don't see that as a major flaw in the system. It's an easily corrected flaw if you want to give players boosts, but that's the system isn't necessarily, it's not about that. You're playing an archetype,
Yeah.
and the stats you'll also notice in AD&D, more so in AD&D than the other systems, the stats skew to the average. Like you only get some modest bonuses when you're stat on or penalties if you're on the extreme range of high or low. Most players, even up to a 15 on any given stat, are not getting any bonuses. Right?
It's very minor, like you said. Hey, you get a little bit more for strength, a little bit more for charisma.
Charisma's the exception where you get a bonus starting at 13. But
well, no, strength still gets your bonuses for opening doors and stuff like this.
Right, little modifiers, but I'm talking combat bonuses and like.
Oh yeah, I will say this much though, and this is the other part when we're talking about BX versus AD&D, and this is what helped me out is High Gygaxian improved my
As I
reading
level up, my stats go down.
But the High Gygaxian is whenever I took tests, I always scored at 12th grade or above, even when I was like 11 or 12, because I was reading. I mean, let's be honest.
At a much higher level. I mean, I think that's one of the things everybody we know has in common. I was reading Doc Savage, Sherlock Holmes. I read Edgar Allan Poe's the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe. The day I graduated kindergarten, my dad said, "Oh, here, try this." Okay, and I read it by the end of summer. That's the one thing I think each and every one of us has in common. Our reading level was like off the charts for our age, for whatever reason, and that's how we were drawn into this hobby.
But what I want to say is BX, if you look at it, is written at a much more accessible level.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's meant. It's how do I want to put this? BX is written to be played, and AD&D in many ways is written to be theorized. It's the difference between. I mean, I hate saying this because I deal with engineering, and I'll just use this for engineering. The Army Corps books are written for someone that's looking at college level PhDs that are written for books. And then my NRCS and the FHWA are written for people that actually use all of that engineering knowledge to build something. It's not that you can't glean it, but they're written for kind of two different audiences. And I think that's the fact. But again, I think the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide is a great reference book to read to see how the game was designed.
It's the second best book on. Well, it's the best of the D&D books, but I've said this before. The best book ever written to teach you how to be a good dungeon master, if not a great dungeon master, is the Administrator's Guide for Top Secret SI. It is the first book chronologically that tells you all the things that we talk about on a regular freaking basis that we had to learn the hard way, but they were already there in that book. All the do's and don'ts of dungeon mastering. The different things like Seth Skorkowski's 7 Deadly Sins videos.
Oh yeah,
right. It's all that stuff before Seth was knee high to a grasshopper. Let's say.
Oh yeah,
really
but
should
I mean,
check that book out.
But so many of us. But I mean, there's so many things out there that helped, and we have a lot of retrospect. But I don't mind. I like level caps because guess what? At that point, the players start focusing more on the world than just getting the next level. If it's just, I can get another level. I can get another level. I can get another level. Oh, I can get another spell. I can get this. Whereas once you do a level cap, it's like, well, okay, this is what you're gonna do. Like I said, I really do enjoy acts for the dungeon master stuff and for world building. I think it's great. I think that was, but like you said, it's your world, it's your game. There are dozens of games that came out. We're just glad that it came out
in our lifetime
when we were young. So we have benefited for basically 5 or 6 editions of Dungeons and Dragons. And we can look over the evolution. 3E really wasn't for me, but I understood why they did it. I actually like where they did where they split it between 10th, 20th, and 30th level. So it says, here's your adventurer style. This is for this, and then this is when you can start fighting these monsters, and then this is like once you get to 21st level, the expectations you're supposed to be fighting gods. For 3rd edition, and I think that's good.
That's actually kind of one of those things that would have been helpful back in the day. Not saying that you should break out the deities and demigods book looking for monsters when the players hit 25th level, because that's kind of a little, I don't know. It's just too much, a little too ridiculous that the players are literally going in and just hunting down gods for XP or adventure or what have you.
I want to be Kratos, damn it.
That again boils down to the DM, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that, like you've said, is hey, when you start doing things, I agree. Magic items were far too common for based off of the permanency spell. I think there were just certain things that they kind of got rid of in certain areas. But one thing I did like about BX is they capped the spell levels at 6. I know that Beckme went up higher, but I actually like, hey, the first 2 6-level spells, which is what I like about Axe. Those are the spells that you're intended to cast during combat and things like this. And I'm not saying you can't get rituals, but your 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells are your ritual spells. That's where you can do the floating clouds and stuff like that, which is really what I wish that D&D had done more
like
of.
the cloud castles?
Yeah, well, in Axe, they literally have a ritual.
AD&D introduced a lot of utility stuff. It's things that you aren't worrying about combat. Mending. It's like, I'm going to cast a spell and mend my jerkin. Things like that. And because AD&D, despite Gygax saying it wasn't meant to be a simulation, is the most simulationist of all of the editions. And it really does play that way, and that's where AD&D shines, is when you lean into the simulationist aspect. Roll for disease checks every once in a while. Make sure you've got your weather laid out with the wind directions. There's a whole page on wind direction.
The whole castles and upkeep and hirelings and professionals that you could hire and things like that also play into that whole idea of you're going to live this character, not just watch the cool stuff.
And I think when, like I said, when we start adding things up, if you assume that it takes it would take 1 week of training per level. I can't remember.
No, it's you have your training time is determined by your player rating. So
1 to 4.
Yeah, if you're doing really shitty, you're playing a below par, it could take you 4 weeks to train, and then you have to pay $1,500 per level per week.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of unfair for the mage because they only have that one spell, so of course they're throwing weapons and stuff for low levels.
You work with what you've got, right? DM's got to be smart about it.
Well, let's face it, Gygax clearly did not want magic users in the game.
No, he did not. No, that is not true. I mean, specifically,
I don't agree with that assessment. I know
what he said is, but what he was afraid of is that at higher levels, magic users completely dominate the game and invalidate a lot of the martial classes, which I've heard a lot of.
Let's be realistic. If magic users existed, that's all there would be is magic users.
No, because it requires
everybody would want their kid to grow up to be a magic user. Everybody.
Right, but it requires a certain level of intellect to be able to do it, to be able to harness the powers. It requires a lot of money, and in a society where the average income is 10 gold pieces a month,
which would over time usher in a renaissance earlier than Earth experienced it, and then an industrial age earlier. If you play things out,
it all depends on the availability of the studies and the power too.
Yeah, you're right. But if it was all left up to random, I'm pretty sure you'd find more magical empires going to the stars sooner than we did here on Earth.
But they wouldn't go to the stars. They can do gates.
You know what I mean? That kind of crazy, kind of over the top, spelljammery, kind of magical,
But that
weird.
that
We never.
assumption that assumption doesn't take into consideration so many variable factors. Like, for instance, let's say you've got this cadre of wizards who want to do exactly what you're saying, and then you've got the superstitious bastards who overwhelm them and wipe out their civilization, right?
Sure, there'd be
So-
exceptions, but
Well, here's the other part
I don't
is
think too many people would want to play in those worlds.
well, that's what you had the Red Wizards of Thay for Forgotten Realms and a few others. And the other thing is, at a certain point, your gods do come down and say, "Okay, enough," or which I think people forget about is, it's just like whenever I hear paladins are the hardest characters to play. If you actually read the AD&D book,
Paladins are
Clerics
easy.
are
What are you talking about?
clerics
follow
are
the
the
rules.
hardest to play. If you actually read it, the clerics are supposed to be the hardest to play, and everyone ignores that fact. It's just like you said. Well, why are you taking the healing? I'm not taking healing because you want to be stupid. I take maybe 1 or 2 healing spells, and then I keep my other spells to help out the party in other areas.
I'm taking preventative measures here. I'm going to put a protection from evil on you so you don't get touched by that ghoul and die.
Or hey, I'm keeping back the undead. Hey, by the way, that bless spell, which affects the entire party, is more useful for us than just having that that cure light wounds, because you ran forward. We told you don't do that.
Good luck
If
telling
you have
players.
if you have 1 hit point,
Players
you can
have to
still
learn
Yeah,
that.
you guys can talk all your substitute for the cure light wounds, and my experience has been without it, no one makes it to second level.
No, nobody's
No,
saying
my experience is exactly the opposite.
you gotta use your full range of abilities.
Sure, but I mean, if you as soon as there's no undead in the first level dungeon, which if you think about it, the first level dungeon, skeletons, that's it. You know what I mean?
Zombies,
Everything.
skeletons, zombies.
Weren't zombies
Couple
like
of
2-hit die
whites.
critters?
I mean, white might be your high level, monster that you encounter. But
One
no,
hit from a white, it's over.
exactly.
And
That's
then
your
Cure light
high level.
wounds ain't helping you with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you're looking at a death spiral. I wouldn't throw a white in a party or against a party until they were at least like third level.
No, I would put a white in, but I expect them to run sometimes. Run.
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's part of it. But the other part is
I don't know about that.
smart players can do a lot of amazing things.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
I mean, they outnumber you. That's the very least they should be able to do. If you think about it, unless you go out of your way to find players that you don't actually want to hang out with, like attracts like. So if you're a decent, smart guy, you're probably going to hang out with some other smart guys that should be able to outthink you, especially for them against you as the DM. You
right
should
there,
be
that speaks to a philosophy that I don't like, is player versus DM thing. Like you talk
but
about,
it is.
I'm not going to put a white in a dungeon against my first level characters. I'm like, I'm not even thinking of that way. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the setting. Here's the dungeon. What's in it is what's in it. The players need to figure out how to deal with what's in it. They might be caught off guard by something, but I'm not.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by like, the random monster tables 1 through 10. You don't find the white until much later on.
Random tables. You might seed something a little beyond their things. Did you ever play the Caverns of Thracia? The Jeff Way's adventure?
Oh,
There's
no,
a fucking lich. That's meant for levels 1 to 5. There's a fucking lich in that dungeon, right?
Well, but some of
Really?
them are, but some of them are that you're intended to talk to the monsters. The other one is, and we're talking about a white. If you look at, that's the dungeon level. If you have 3 levels of a dungeon, then a white can be your final boss. Hey, it was put to rest here, and you can run away. That's what always gets me. Players do not have to stand and fight. There's this idea, and then the other part, like we're talking about, is well, you have to have a cure light wounds. Well, at first level, an arrow shot can take you out anyway. So why would I want to waste a cure light wounds on you? I mean, it's absurd because I've played with
Because you're
Sean.
the difference between life and death.
No, it's not. My point is that it still can be enough damage to kill you, even if I do a cure light wounds on you from a single hit. At that point,
I just
no.
I've never seen a cure light wounds get wasted in a game. Ever.
No, I see it all the time, especially somebody takes 10 damage and like, oh, you better heal me, and they roll a 1.
Still one.
Brilliant.
Better than zero.
But what I'm saying is I've played with Sean a few times. We started getting a lot into retainers. We started getting into, and that knocks it down a lot. The other part is, one of my characters survived an arrow wound from 2 hit points. Well, guess what? I have 2 hit points. A cure light wounds probably is not the smartest thing. And I know he's played with Angus, the buffest dwarf ever that we had. The character rolled. What did he have? Like 32 hit points at like 4th level or something?
That was Daniel's character, right?
That was Daniel's character, and
he kept rolling max.
He had what was he had 27 hit points at 3rd level as a cleric.
Nice.
And again, this is a D6, but I think it was encouraging players.
He had an 18 con, right? So he was +3 on those hit points.
Yeah, he had 18 con. And
really? I thought it was only 2.
In AD&D,
in OSE is +3.
Yeah,
okay.
It's basically
so it's not just fighters.
No, it's +1, +2, +3, and that applies to every character class for whatever they have.
Okay, that's a huge.
That's old school essentials. That's BX, so it's not AD&D.
Yeah,
that's a huge departure.
But you also have lower hit points. But I noticed that and I think, and I know Sean played more of the early games. Boy, the level deaths at the beginning, it was like boom, dead, boom, dead, boom, dead. And boy, once you got to like 2nd or 3rd level, one is the players started playing smarter. So they stopped trying to fight everything like I know you've talked about it with your 5e players versus your AD&D players, or your BX players, and how they realized that, what was it, like the 3rd or 4th total party kill, like maybe we shouldn't be running forward at them.
We should be playing smart, yeah. And I always tell people, play like you're a person in danger, not like you're an avatar and playing a video game,
Yeah, it's easier said than done, isn't it?
You learn. You get burned enough, you learn, and you start adopting the mindset.
And I think that was the real advantage for getting those players initially up to 3rd level. You're right. Once you've been playing long enough and you play smart, then, hey, I don't mind starting you off at 3rd level. But I think that those first through 3rd levels are really trainer levels on understanding how lethal the game is, how dangerous, start moving around. I know you were talking about traps before. Mm-hmm. And
I'm going to do part 2 as well.
Part of it is, like when we were playing Axe, okay, guess what? I'm going to be using my 10-foot pole to tap around. As long as the players tell me what they're doing, then I'm like, I don't have to have it tell me every time. Now I'm going to say, okay.
Right. You'd be surprised, though. Even in the modern day, a lot of GMs will say, no. There are no I'm not going to memorize what you're doing always. You've got to tell me always what you're doing, because that's not my job to memorize your routine.
Yeah, I've got players who do that. Well, this is my default situation. I don't fucking care. You're going to tell me when new turn starts. Everybody's telling me what they're doing. If you're tapping the floor, or if you're searching for secrets, or you.
Do you do that in live and online games?
Oh, I barely play online anymore. All my games are live.
Okay, see, because like that's part of the thing. The theme around most of my videos lately is the idea that when you're playing online, it's a completely different beast.
I'm going to say as much as I don't mind players telling me, "Hey, here's my routine." That's great, but guess what? Your routine, unless something breaks it up, that's what you're going to do. If you're tapping around, you're making noise. I mean, just to be fair, you're going to be making noise, and that's. But I don't mind going through that, and that's why you're playing.
One of my pet peeves is, something happens, and the player will say, "Well, my character would have been hiding." It's like, maybe he would have been, but you didn't say you were.
Well, there's a difference. If they said, "Hey, here's my routine, and this is what I'm going to do." Everything. Okay, great. It's like having to me party order for marching. You're going to run to that default of whatever you tell me your routine is, unless something disrupts it.
Well, I use minis at the table, and I always say, put yourselves in your marching order, and what's on the table is what's
Well,
staying.
see that's another thing that I did talk about recently was uh, these tried and true procedures that you have taken from previous games and inserted into the mind of your first level character who would have no clue about this crap. They would have no idea that using 10-foot poles in a certain way, or even looking for traps on every single door. A
Well,
lot of those meta things
I'm,
piss me off.
that's an interesting discussion. I used to think that way as well, and it's like, well, you wouldn't know this, and then I got fed up with policing player knowledge, so I adopted a you know what you think you know philosophy. So, it's easily conceivable that a smart character, even though he's first level, he maybe had good training or he had good mentors or whatever. We don't know the character's
Right, but I mean,
background,
the
but here,
older and more experienced the player, the less they can actually role play their first level character. They're already playing Doctor Strange at a first level magic user.
well, they're still
You know what I
constrained
mean?
by the mechanics of their character. But here's what sort of my philosophy of you know what you think you know, where it works out is players don't have to pretend not to know something. They don't have to sit here and go, oh well, I wouldn't know that. It's like, hey, if you know it, you know it. And because I've like one of my players, he was a DM in the 70s. He's memorized the monsters. He knows all their weaknesses, or he thinks he does. And he often will make mistakes because I don't let them look it up to confirm. It's like, it's like the lore you have is the lore you have, and
Yeah,
more often than not,
try telling this guy not to look in the monster manual when you're
you do it
playing
at the table,
online.
you're out. Right? I can't police you at home, but if you're looking shit up at the table, it's like, all right, get away from the table. I had a guy player do that once. He wasn't happy with how it went for his character. He literally opened the monster manual. So it says right here, it's like, you fucking get that book out of your hands. Um, but the point is, and I don't know if you guys have watched my recent videos, my Tomb of the Lizard King videos. We had a player who made a choice and convinced the others on a course of action. He was playing a first level character dealing with a vampire that almost got them all killed because he had the information wrong. And it's like, I'm not obliged to correct you when you're wrong.
No, and I think that's a good way of doing it. No, I was looking at it, I was like, I thought it was going to be a complete total party kill, and it was pretty close.
It was close, yeah. But that player, his 8th level thief had died, and so we inserted his new first level character, and he was talking like he had full authority, and it's like, well, great, you get to be the arrogant asshole who gets everybody killed, and he almost did.
So, but the part of the things that like I said, there are certain things that are in there. Hey, does this work? But yeah. But yeah, it's how much do you know? One thing I did like in talking about a different system is I liked Iron Kingdoms. You can roll a lore check. What's interesting is that the lower lore check rolls can be wrong. So I really wish that more DMs had done that. Of hey, guess what? I think if you roll a 10, you get this information. If you roll a 15, you get this information. If you roll a 20, you get this information. And no,
I'll often do something like that with an ability check, like an intelligence check. It's like, because it's conceivable an educated character like a wizard might have studied this stuff. So it's like, all right, give me an intelligence check, and then I'll use that to give them
the problem
clues.
with that though is
I won't give them direct information. Oh well, your intelligence tells you this is how you beat the enemy, but I'll give them snippets of lore or whatever, right? Oh, yeah. There's a rumor that says they're vulnerable to silver, right? Whether or not it's true, that's something they might know.
Right. With what Eldrad's saying here, no, in a fantasy world, a trap, blah, 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 they would know about that stuff. They wouldn't know about all of it. They would only know about the most common, basic, mundane, rudimentary stuff.
Right.
They would know nothing about liches and vampires.
No. I'm going to be different.
No, I don't agree with that. Again, this is where I say you know what you think you know. You're in a world where this stuff exists. So
and that's why I've had to write my own monster manual, because it's
possible. It's not, as you say, they're not going to know everything. They're not going to necessarily be an encyclopedic knowledge, but what they think they know can still apply, right?
Well,
There's
we'll see. And
plenty of more.
legends are legends. Let's be honest. You're probably more likely to
But they're
hear
making up the legends of your world and using that as an excuse. You
my
haven't
no,
told them that legend.
my point being is that
See what
like
I'm saying?
liches would be legendary. That get they're
What if they're
legends.
not? What if you literally want them like the lich to be a complete surprise when it shows up? No one knows what a lich is. It's supposed to be a surprise, but then as soon as they get there, they're like, "Oh, it's a lich." I'm like, "You don't know what a lich is.
That's
You don't know
Well,
what a
fine. I
werewolf
don't
is."
mind them knowing. It's like
yeah, I don't
they,
mind either. It's
Nah.
but the thing is
you can
is
also here's the other thing is you as the DM are totally within your rights to shake things up. Sure,
Mhm.
might be a lich, but maybe this is a lich with a different ability or a different makeup. The what's in the monster manual is the baseline. You're not obliged to adhere 100% of the baseline. I
Okay,
generally do 90%
here's
of
the
the time.
ultimate question. Here's the ultimate question. When and where do you do that? Do you do that on the spur of the moment to
No,
shake
never
things
on the
up,
spur of the moment.
or do you have to write it down?
I
I'll
would
make a
write it
note of
down
it. If
just to
I'm
be fair to the players.
Yeah, if it's a random encounter, I usually go the baseline.
Yeah.
If it's a module I'm running, I'm not gonna make too many adjustments, if any. But if I'm seeding something myself or I'm creating a campaign villain or a character in a campaign, I'm not constrained by the rules. I can have the odd variance. But I won't do something on the fly just to mess with the players. No, that I won't do.
I,
But
did,
I don't mind them having the knowledge. It's like they suss out that something's a lich, fine. But also remember, liches aren't stupid. They hide their natures. They can morph. They can polymorph in to look human.
Mhm.
You've got to you as a DM, you can hide that. And when they have that the eureka moment, holy fuck, is a lich. Then they fucking panic because they didn't know until that moment. You don't just plop an enemy in front of them and say, "Oh, look, it's a lich,"
well,
right?
the other part is not, and I know that this was in some of the Dragon magazines. That the lich would probably want to talk. Not
Yeah, they're
Yeah, you
intelligent.
missed out last week, Omen. They literally talked to a lich and
I
didn't.
saw like, oh my god, they actually didn't. Armstrong just didn't like charge in and anyway. Sorry, but the other part is, and that's one of the things I think about higher levels, because everyone talks about treasure and everything else. At the higher levels, like we said with the Beholder, I'm just going by the little blurb, because remember it's only like a paragraph, and that's one of the reasons I love the Dragon magazine, the ecology series, where they
Mhm.
give a lot more detail about the monsters and their life cycle and stuff. I thought that was actually a really cool idea. But it says the beholder will fight the players unless. But I said, you're a super intelligent being. You're 18 intelligence. And I think why don't you use them as the super villain behind the scenes? They don't necessarily have to be I'm going to fight you all the
Yeah.
time. It's going to be, the other part is, especially for a lich, you became a lich because you were afraid of dying for whatever reason. That could be, hey, I was afraid that if I die, I'm going to go to whichever plane, or I'm going to have to,
Not
deal with.
necessarily afraid of dying always.
Well,
It
their
could,
motivations will be individual, right?
Yeah. But what I'm
yeah.
saying, but they're afraid of going to like, there may be a reckoning.
They had a
if,
reason for going through the process to
Yeah.
extend their
Yeah.
existence on
yeah,
the plane.
exactly.
100%.
And they should have their motivations for that. I think that's why the Ravenloft module did so well. Is now you had a vampire that had a motivation rather than just being the, a Buffy vampire slayer, vampire kind of thing that just jumps out. You start giving them actual motivations. They start
You have to
becoming
see vampire
villains.
do a jump scare, but okay.
Yeah, I think that those are things that, as players, and I like what Professor Dungeon Master did with his B2. I don't put a kobold in there. He made them cannibal humanoids. They have identical stats, but the players don't know. It's like, yeah, okay, fine, they're D4 hit points, but instead I made them cannibalistic humanoids. Okay, maybe it changed their motivations, but now the players are dealing with a monster they don't know, even though the stats are the same. You can do the same thing. And then the other part is, I know that Sean was talking about whites being intelligent. In the book, if you're going just by pure rules, they hate bright light. So if you shine it at them, they'd probably back off. And there may be times they may want to talk. that's the other part everyone seems to hate and not want to talk about. Why
Yeah.
do you disturb
Parlay
me?
with your enemies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why have you disturbed me? What brings you down into this? What brings you down to this dungeon to disturb my sleep? I have been here for 200 years. You know,
Mhm.
and maybe the players can actually, that's the other part.
And this is where
Well,
you don't dump stat charisma because this guy likes you. It's like, oh, you're here for plunder, are you? Well, I'll tell you what. I have a nemesis. Here's the map to his place.
It's always that, isn't it? It's like go
plunder
do my
him.
dirty work. Go do my dirty work for me.
Go plunder him, destroy him, leave me alone, take what you like from him, right?
or like, if you can do this, I will give you the sword. Like you gave us that wish scroll.
Mhm.
I will give you this sword if you can go do this. And then the other, one thing I do like about, and I wish this was done more often, is what they did in Forbidden Lands. Your magic items come with negative effects, but they're magic items. So it's like, they're kind of like the artifacts in D&D. I really wish they had done more of that. Instead of getting the +1 sword, it's the, hey, this,
To be honest, I absolutely love the whole uh, artifact, line fill in the blank.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
wish they would.
that's a
I
great
wish they
thing.
would have done that with so much more than just the artifacts. It would have simplified the entire book. You know what I mean? If they would have made it like just a couple more of those tables, and then put the bare minimum for the magic item, and then a couple of lines for choose a random power over here, and then you'd have like you wouldn't have this freaking uh these generic +1s and 2s and 3s, and these other super common items like the rope climbing and elven cloak and boots. Everything should be a lot more rare and unique, especially when you go into the AD&D process of making a magic item, which we should have an entire discussion on why and how a wand of fireballs is 66, but you've got to be able to make a 12d6 fireball before you can even make one, etc. You know what I mean? The magic items that are in the book are like completely watered down from the bare minimums you can make when you make your very first magic item.
Because they have advantages over being able to cast, and you can always just justify it by saying that the process of imbuing the item with the magic dilutes the magic to an extent, but also grants you other abilities like the ability to spam fireballs, right?
or lightning bolts or whatever. I mean, magic
Ever,
missiles.
yeah,
Yeah,
Right, but I
without
mean,
being
the most
without
basic
being
magic
interrupted.
item, the most basic magic item is enchant item and dump my daily spell allotment into it and call it a day. Right?
yeah.
No, there's usually a process for creating an item.
Well,
Um,
no, he's saying for recharging the item.
for
Well, no,
recharging.
no, like the equivalent of a ring of spell storing, right? But it's not a
But
ring; it's any other item, right? Made of high quality, all the process.
right.
I cast the enchant item, and then I'm literally allowed to put whatever spells I have memorized into the item, right?
Yeah, but then you fix it. With the ring of spell storing, you fix it. You can't change it up anymore. Once you've decided what spells go into that ring, those are the only spells that can go back into that ring once you've expended them.
I have never heard that before.
No, it says it in the book. It's
It's right
literally
in
in the book.
That you can't put in new spells.
No,
Nope. Once you created the item, you fix the spells that go into that ring.
Okay, well, even still, like you're making an item. Let's just call it a bracelet, right? And you cast enchant item, and then you put in the spells you have memorized, right? And once
yeah.
they're done, and the item's useless,
Well, but
No, you can
right?
you know,
recharge them, but it
well,
has to be the same
it's no
spell.
different than a scroll. I mean, and I know
Right.
that
And what I'm describing is a much better scroll with more than just the 7 spells, because technically, when you're making a wand of fireballs, you just memorize nothing but fireballs that day, and that's all you put in the wand, and then the next day you put in more fireballs. Well, imagine in just one day you're just going to go, well, I memorized a couple of magic missiles, a couple of fireballs,
Well,
haste,
the
fly,
other thing
put that
the other
in
thing you're
and done.
forgetting is recharging a wand isn't just a matter of casting spells back into the wand. There's a
No,
process you have to go in.
no,
It's
I'm not
basically
talking about that either. I'm
okay.
talking about just making a simple magic item that has X number of spells in it, and once they're gone, they're gone. Just like you were making a, a scroll
Okay.
or a ring, but it's not. It's
It's
not a
not permanent.
scroll.
It's not
But
permanent. It's just a
but the
charge.
Right.
process in the DMG already sets it up. You as a player who's making that can say to the DM, I want to create this one-time use whatever, and
Exactly.
the DM will just tell you what the process and cost and all that will be.
Which just doing that is actually better than half the magic items in the book.
Well, we're not saying that it isn't. The magic items in the book are just
So,
for the
well, my
DM to get
point is,
ideas.
why aren't
They're
there?
a reference point. Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
don't
the
you
reference
find
book.
more things like that? You know what I mean? Where, for example, I use this all the time. The party is getting ready to go stake the vampire. They found his lair. They got a little bit of time to prepare. So the wizard, instead of making scrolls, which take a freaking insanely retarded amount of time, can literally go and enchant an item if he's got stuff prepared that will do what a scroll would do better, faster, and maybe a little more expensive. But you're not taking a week. What is it? A week to inscribe a first level spell? That's literally 64,000
I
times.
thought it was 1 day per
The
spell
day
level.
per spell level, yeah.
Okay, that's still 64,000 times longer to make a scroll than it is to cast the spell.
Right, it is.
That's supposed to
But
be
that's
because it's
supposed
But
to
charged
be.
that,
into an
but
item.
that's orders of magnitude that make it pointless.
But it's not.
No, it's
Again,
not.
he explains a lot of this stuff.
To me, it is.
Part of it is that you want on demand, and part
Take
of what
care.
he looks
Okay.
at is it's a resource to be used. And for me, it like a lot of things is, how do I want to put this? I looked at it as 2 or 3 things. One is if you have multi classes, which a lot of times, if you have a group of 6 to 8, let's just assume that you normally are going to have probably 2 of each class roughly. And you may have multi-class. What you'll find out in certain cases is you have the combat mage and you'll have a utility mage, or a combat cleric and a healing cleric and a utility cleric is what starts happening. And if you get the multi-class where they kind of spread them out, then you might have 3 of each. And
My
so
point is some of the scrolls that you might find or want to make could literally take the better part of a year to make a single scroll, when uh, in practice you could probably make several magic items in a year.
No, scrolls are very fast. Even a 9th level scroll will only take you 9 days. A magic item will take you months, or as you say, a year, depending on the item. The other advantage of scrolls is you precast all your utility spells into those scrolls. So if you're going to a dungeon, you've got your combat spells. It's like, I'm gonna pre-make 5 identify scrolls, so I don't have to go through the whole process. When we find something in the dungeon, I
Don't
can
even
get
get
a
me
field
started on the identify spell that is tailor made to not let you identify spells.
Oh,
That's
the identify spell is fucking brilliant. The problem is most players want the instant gratification. So identify spell is very okay. You're at first level. You have a 20% chance of succeeding in identification, and then you have to make a saving throw. So it's a double. So it seems like it's almost a waste of
You're skipping over the worst part, though.
which is
As soon as you find the magic item, the clock starts ticking.
you got an
don't have-
hour, an hour per level. Yes, and but here's the flip side. People don't consider it is a cheap, potentially instant field identification instead of having to cart the item back to town and pay thousands for a sage to identify it.
But how does he do it? How does the sage do it when the magic user can't?
The sage is
no,
a
I mean,
scholar with a library.
the way I read
he spends weeks looking over the markings on the item and looking over his historical references.
But the way I read the identify is that nobody else can identify it either. Once your
that's not what it
is up,
says.
It's
it
a
says
completely different thing.
Yeah, the sage
Really?
can do it, but like he's saying, it's my issue is I don't like the identify spell as what it is. This is where it comes down to.
Because nobody I knew I just found this out, the time limit recently, because nobody ever played with it, and I must have been guilty as well of overlooking that entire aspect, because everybody else just said you got this percentage chance to do it, and they might not even use all the spell components, the goldfish, the pearl, etc. If you don't have all that stuff, you can't cast the spell.
It's meant to be an obstacle for a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance at a field identification.
Right, but doesn't it mean also that if there's no sage
into the wilderness and you want to find out if what something can do right away, you have the identify spell. It's
but
not
doesn't it
perfect.
also say that if you and your party can never identify it after your time limit runs up? So at first level,
Not
you
with
got
the
an
spell,
hour,
but there are other ways of identifying stuff, like just
Yeah.
provided there
testing
is an actual sage within some sort of walking distance or whatever.
It's not within walking distance. Once you get to 9th and 10th levels, I mean, at that point, you're kind of
I'm not
expected
talking about the
to
higher
haul
levels.
stuff
I'm
back.
talking about like 1st to 4th level. You find a magic item, you've got like 4 hours. Otherwise, only a paid for
They don't
professional
have the money.
can ever identify it.
That's the point. It's a cheap field identification for the potential of having an instant identification. It's not meant to be a go-to godlike, I'm getting all that information. That's what they turned it into 5e. It's a potential.
Well, even in 2E, it doesn't do that.
Well. Here's the other part. I think that
Or Beckme, I don't think that does.
No. Beckme doesn't have identify, but the other part that's going to come into it is you either have the sage, but you can also test the item out. There are ways of finding out.
You
what
test
it
the
can
item
do.
out. That doesn't wash when you need a specific
identify
command
spell gives you specific information, and that's why there are obstacles to succeeding with it, but it's still potentially good. Yeah, first level identify, the odds are not great, but it's possible. But by the time you get to high level,
it's impossible unless you've already got the
not
pearl.
likely. No, but the identify spell being first level cast by a higher level wizard, suddenly you're getting great use out of it, and especially when you're at 7th level and can now put it onto scrolls.
Well, part of it when I look at it is one is I don't like the identify spell. It's like just take it back to town.
To me,
it's too expensive for a low level character. It's 100.
Not only that, but what amount? So like as soon as the party finds it, they don't even know it's magic, and the clock starts ticking.
That's detect magic.
Detect magic is instant.
Most
players, they find a hoard of loot. They dump it all together and they put detect magic on it right away.
Yeah, but what if they don't? They don't have.
Well, then that's their problem.
No, what I mean is, when does the clock start? When does the clock start? As soon as they find it, it says.
Well, so what? Then they don't cast the identify spell. I don't understand what the problem is. You don't have to cast the identify spell at all, is what we're saying. It is.
But then you could. It's designed to be. It's to me. It comes across as like a big giant gotcha. Because if the clock starts,
don't take it. Don't give it to players. That's my whole thing.
You're missing the whole point. Is that the players will never. They might never know they even had magic items.
That's what detect magic's for.
That's a risk one way or the other, right?
Did you know how you do it? Is you take half your loot and you say, I'm going to detect magic. Okay, then I detect magic on this one. Well, something's magical. All right, now let's go figure out what it is. That's what the players do with that. And what we're saying for scrolls in certain cases is like comprehend languages. That may be a corner case scroll where I need that.
Yeah, it's like, we found this writing on the wall. Nobody can read it. All right, pull out the comprehend languages scroll I prepared for this expedition.
Yeah,
right.
And that's one, is especially if you need to read it. I have, like I said, again coming out to BX versus AD&D.
Yeah, I think you guys are missing my point. To me, it comes across as overly punitive in the way that it would be implemented. In that players.
This is why players never took identify when I was playing.
It's punitive because you're not considering the benefit. The benefit. The benefit of having even a faulty chance of identification. Okay, you're on an expedition. You and your 7th level group. You found a dungeon. The dungeon is 3 weeks out of town. You have to set up a base camp. You're going in. It's an excavation. It's not a gauntlet where you're running through in one adventure. You're spending months excavating this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you found a new chamber. Oh, look at all this treasure. Boom. Let's get it out to base camp where the wizard can do the identify and see what we found. Right?
But if it takes longer than an hour for a first level, you can never do it.
But I'm just saying, you're not. This isn't. The benefit is not when you're at first level. It's when you've got higher levels. Like you've
so up until you can actually use the spell, just kiss magic items goodbye. You might as well just sell them.
No, we haven't said any of that. What we're saying
Nobody
is,
said
I'm
anything
saying
like
what the
that.
obvious conclusion is.
What I'm saying
no,
is
it's not.
you have
You're
a
jumping. You're
chance at
jumping
a
the shark.
very cheap field identification of an item that you don't have to take back to a sage. You don't have to worry about waving around or testing. It's like, all right, we've had our day of adventure. We got this loot. Look, the sword is glowing. The priest cast detect magic. All right, wizard, you're up. See what it does, right? That's the advantage.
I'm talking
as
about
a
the
first
time
level.
limit.
As a
I'm
first
talking
level,
about the
a first
timer,
level,
guys.
a first
As
level
soon as
magic
the
user should
timer-
not be getting identify in the first place. Identify is not really for a first level character because you have other spells that are more important when you're adventuring.
Let me explain how I see it. Okay.
Okay.
As soon as you find a magic item, whether you know it's magic or not, the timer starts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that means every item that you eventually find as magic, you have to then go pay to identify it to know what it is.
Or you have to test it.
And risk the cursed
Okay,
magic items.
when you're taking an item to a sage, they're not casting identify on it. The identify spell doesn't even apply. They're using
I
their
get that. I
own
get that.
ability and
There's some
knowledge.
other thing.
But
because
they're
the
charging you
identify-
through the fucking nose. Like if you have a chance of identifying something in the field for a mere 100 gold pieces, it's worth that opportunity.
Sure, when you're like 10th level.
Well,
Sure.
right. But that's when you
before-
need it.
but
But that's
before
when you
then-
need it.
Before then, I every time I've played and I wanted to go take an item to a sage, it's been like thousands of gold to identify the item, only to find out it's a +1 sword.
Right. Well,
Better off to just sell it and not deal with the magic at all. Until you get to a certain point, it's another gotcha and another punitive, thing.
You're
you have to deal
okay.
with.
So again, you're going from the place of you have a right to the knowledge too. A lot of players they expect that they should just be able to get the knowledge. Identify is an opportunity. Remember, DMs should be drip feeding information. Identify spell is a chance, a flawed chance to get knowledge out of the DM. So it shouldn't be an automatic gimme. It should.
No, it shouldn't.
Steps.
But there should be the whole time thing is what bothers me because I've never seen it used ever. Not even
Well,
once.
there's a reason for that. There's nothing wrong. Well, here's the thing: is
And when I read that,
when
I'm
we were
like,
playing,
what
we
was
never
he
used
thinking?
identify because identify knocks your wizard out for about 24 hours because it knocks
which
your
is
constitution way down.
penalty enough, right?
Right.
I mean that's a pretty steep penalty.
But here's the counterpoint. Let's say you've got your first level wizard and he has identify. You're doing an excavation style, and it's like, all right, hey, we found a magic item. All right, get the wizard back to camp. He can still potentially have that 20% chance to identify. Even at first level, that can be a big deal. Spending that 100 for first level characters is still more cost effective than going to a sage who
Absolutely. But the if you take out the timer, everything else is fine. It was the timer that blew my mind. That if you don't
when
do
you're
it
running your game,
immediately-
take out the timer. You have that ability.
well, my point is, I've never seen the timer used. Ever.
Well. Here's the
100%.
Do
thing.
you use the time?
Oh yeah, I do it by the book.
But see, you like having identify. I personally don't like identify as a spell. I never liked identify as a spell. I think it's a terrible spell. I think it's a spell that's used as a trap among low-level characters. That's what detect magic is for. Hey, guess what? You find out that this is magical. You know what? And I hate saying this because a lot of first edition Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of first Dungeons and Dragons was a lot of randomness. What's that?
How is it a bad thing?
What do you mean by the bad thing? I said it's a trap. It's a trap for low-level characters to even try doing that. It's a waste of a lot of money for things when they can test out themselves, which is really the point. They're supposed to test themselves.
Can't.
What do you mean you can't?
How do you test out a wand of fireballs?
Why is the first level character getting a wand of fireballs?
They might just happen to come across one. It's not impossible.
I'm not saying they can't come across it, but generally, for those kinds of things is, if you find a wand, you're like, well,
how do you test out a
detect magic on it? That's one of the first things I would do with a wand.
Take care, James. Well, my point is any magic item that has any command words or special things that you have to do to get it to work, you would never guess. I mean,
It
the
might actually just
likelihood
be
is
written
millions
on
to
the
one.
wand. There's a lot of different things that could be done, and
That's up
that's
to the
part.
DM. Yeah,
Yeah,
providing that knowledge is up to the DM.
and
Right.
then
If they're gonna, they might as well then just, if you're gonna put the command words on the freaking wand engraved, then sure, that's even a big one of the biggest gimmies you could, you know,
not necessarily, because if I write something in Cyrillic, do you know how to pronounce that?
one of the command comprehend languages or
Yeah,
tongues.
but then you have to use that ability, and you need that ability to do
It
it.
was.
Yes.
I'm certain that if you cast one of those things from that point on, you wouldn't have to cast the same thing every time to cast it. You'd learn it.
No, no,
Well,
no, no. Well, that's the
once
whole
you
point.
learned it, you wouldn't have to recast, but
Right,
right.
you still need that comprehend languages to get that word.
And so those are the things
Sure.
that we're talking about in certain ones is like, well, okay, how do I do this? And just because you can comprehend languages, it says, all right, it says lightning for lightning. That's great. But your command word isn't it? This is why I said for different languages, which a lot of DMs don't use as much anyway, is great. It's in Draconic. Well, how do I pronounce lightning in Draconic?
Go ask a sage.
Yeah, those
No,
are
you then follow it up with a tongue spell, and you learn how to
that's a
pronounce
third
it in
level
Draconic.
Or
spell.
you find somebody who speaks the language and say, "Help me pronounce
Yes.
this." Right?
So
That's the role
those,
playing aspect.
and that's part of
Mhm.
the how do I want to put this? That creates its own adventures of learning and how to do it because you can give a really powerful magic
Yeah,
item.
I don't see anyone. It's not like in Gamma World where you can fiddle with the buttons and the dials and try not to shoot yourself with the ray gun. Trying to figure out a magic item, what it does through trial and error, trying to randomly say words or rub things and do different things like that. Try to rub the bracers to get it to work.
It's not going to be flawless, but it is still possible. Right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I
it's
find
up
the
to you as the DM to adjudicate when the player says, "I
yeah
want to try
the
X."
odds would be billions to one that you're going to get it right. You know what
No,
I mean?
Let them try.
but again, you can lock stuff behind and force character. I'm not even saying force characters. You can encourage players to go out and do things, and who knows what the wand is. Again, the way that Gygax did it, your wand of lightning could be very similar to a rifle, and it's like, oh, if I just push this and I do this is why thieves have a chance of doing their stuff along with backfiring. Um,
They
for
can read
their
scrolls, but they can't use wands.
I thought they had the ability to use some implements or things like that.
No,
No, I
no.
think
You think
scroll.
ranger? You're
It's
thinking
which one?
ranger? The ranger can use crystal balls and
No, no,
item.
no, 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 no. There's one of them. I thought that they could use magic items with a chance of it failing.
No, not that I'm aware.
Might be assassins. I'm blanking off
I'll
that.
have to
Yeah,
double. It could be. I
pretty
could
sure
be
it's not.
mixing up some of
But
the other.
gents, I gotta go too.
Okay.
Normally the show's only an hour, Sean. We start at 9, go to 10, but we were having so much fun that we
Yep.
just
No,
we'll
glad
continue this
you
maybe
came on,
tomorrow.
Sean. That's yeah.
Yeah, because
You were talking my language.
can guarantee we'll be talking some more AD&D tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you guys in the funny papers. I got to go clean out my garage.
Okay. Well, take care.
Bye,
All
guys.
right. Good day, guys.
Bye.